Hello and welcome to NTV Wild Talk with me, Smriti Vidyarthi, and happy Valentine's Day to you all. Now, picture this: tall, slender, long legs, beautiful skin, and lush, long eyelashes. What am I talking about? It's not just some hot woman, it is in fact a giraffe, just like that one in the distance behind me. Giraffes really are beautiful and magnificent animals. And on this Valentine's Day that's set aside for love, we need you to start falling in love with giraffes. In just a moment, my guest will tell you why it's so important to love and care for them. We are coming to you from the Giraffe Centre here in Nairobi. Well, joining me now is Julian Fennessy, the director of the Giraffe Conservation Foundation. Pleasure to have you on NTV Wild Talk. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks, Freddie. It's great to be here.
All right, now, Julian, we have in fact done a show on NTV Wild Talk about giraffe in the past. But there is a reason as to why we need to do this show again. There has been a really critical development related to giraffes. What's happening to them?
It's a little frightening. Basically, the IUCN, the World Conservation Union, has just announced that giraffes are vulnerable. They're threatened with extinction. So vulnerable is the same status as elephant. And we all know that elephant are under severe threat, both here in Kenya as well as across Africa. So what we've really found out is that giraffe numbers have plummeted by an estimated 40% in the last 30 years alone.
And that's around the world.
That's across Africa. But I reckon if we look back a little further, 100 to 200 years, there's probably about 1 million giraffe, and now we have less than 100,000 in the wild.
All right, well, I'll come to how we've gotten to that in just a moment. But first, why has the IUCN made that announcement now?
So we as the Giraffe Conservation Foundation have figured out for a few years that something's going wrong. But what we had to do is a few years ago pull together the world's experts. So we created the Giraffe and Okapi Specialist Group, which I'm also the co-chair of. Nothing better to do than a little bit more giraffe work.
Right.
But what we decided to do was pull experts together. And we have about 25 experts from around the world who have done things previously and currently. And we really wanted to figure out how many giraffe there are. So for the last 3 odd years, that's what we've been doing. We've been counting giraffe. We've been working with partners. Where are they? Where are they not anymore? So that was the impetus. We really had to say, how many are there? And once we knew how many there were, what was the impact that was happening? What are the threats that are ongoing? And we submitted all this to IUCN last year. And fortunately for giraffe, it came out that they're vulnerable. But I do think, and we can probably chat that a bit more later, I do think we can make a difference now.
Well, I certainly hope we can, because these are incredible, incredible animals. But now, Julian, what has happened to get us to where we are now? Such a huge drop in numbers. Why? What are the major threats?
It's essentially what we call a silent extinction. So many people thought giraffe were silent. They didn't make any sound. But unfortunately, people assume giraffe are everywhere. You see them in the national parks, and of course, you see one, you see many. But unfortunately, habitat loss, habitat degradation, so where the land is not as useful anymore because human population growth in Africa has boomed. And so there's been agriculture needs for people in many rural areas. And unfortunately, the land for giraffe and other animals has gone missing. So that's a key threat. And it's hard to sort of figure out how that's gone on, but it's just happening before our eyes.
So does this mean that the giraffes are just dying? I mean, what's happening to them if they're losing their land? Are they not moving to other areas? Why are they still not surviving?
So there's not that many areas left. That's the problem. They can't move corridors between areas in some parts of Africa. So they're not dying per se, but what's happening is that the population is not growing at the same rate as previously. So that's in some areas, but we have to be honest that there has been a lot of poaching, illegal hunting.
Similar to that of elephants, because we know that, there's a huge uproar about elephants and they are hugely under threat as well. Is it similar with giraffes?
Yes and no. Similar in the sense that, the numbers are being killed, especially across Eastern and Central Africa. And we have populations, say, in Ethiopia, where they've dropped by 95% in the last 30 years. But giraffe are not sort of killed for the trophy like their ivory or a rhino horn. but mostly for their meat. So if you end up sadly in some of these, sort of cabana areas, there might be giraffe meat. It's a big animal and you get a lot of meat and you can make a lot of money from it. So that's one of the reasons, but there is rumours that they may help to cure HIV/AIDS.
And surely none of that is true.
I mean, it's nonsense. I mean, as nonsense as your keratin and rhino horn
Right.
helping to cure, your impotency.
Well, some might question, why does it matter if giraffe populations aren't growing? Why are they so important to the greater ecosystem?
Well, I mean, it's always one of those big questions is like, but who cares? A giraffe is a giraffe, isn't it? And they really are valuable ecosystem sort of, dynamic players. Elephants open up landscapes, so do rhinos. Interestingly, so do giraffe. They're big browsers. They eat a lot of food. They keep the areas open so other smaller wildlife can use. But importantly, they're great pollinators. So by feeding on the flowers and the trees, they get it all over their mouth and then they take it to the next one. Right. But by swallowing the seeds, they also put little power packs when they sort of defecate, and those become, a great little nutrient source for growing new vegetation. Right. So they are really massive sort of changes in the landscape. And I just think we've just done so little research on it. And the bottom line is we need to do more, we need to understand more so we can help better understand and conserve them.
Why has there been so little research, though? If you compare it to elephants, there are so many elephant experts out there, but not so with giraffes.
Interesting. I used to do a little bit of elephant research and I wouldn't say that, there's too many egos in elephant world, but,
right.
Well, that's another discussion. But really, I think elephants have such a good social structure and it's so well known. Giraffe don't have that same social structure. The mum, the dad, the little ones, they don't live together in units. They come together and go apart. So I think that hasn't sort of grabbed the attention of most of the interested researchers in the world. And it is this forgotten megafauna. We assume, yes, they feed on a tree, they move here to here, job done. But they don't have big teeth.
Are they sort of emotional animals in any way? I mean, you've spent so much time with them. How would you describe the character of a giraffe?
I think you get to know any individual the more you spend time with them. And I think I can, sort of relate a story that's in northwestern Namibia. Giraffe a little one had just been unfortunately taken by lion. And so the mum was around, and for the next couple of days, the lion were feeding, and once they moved on, I saw the giraffe mother every day go back, sniff and smell those bones. Really? Just like elephants mourn their dead, it's happening to giraffe, and I'm sure it's happening to many other wildlife. And that's just one of the things. So I'm sure the more we find out, or the more we look at it, giraffe are going to be one of those animals that hopefully people don't just only love, but they really care for.
Of course. And there has been another development, though, from the IUCN, and that's something to do with species.
Yes, not the IUCN per se. Okay. I'll have to put my hand up and say that's actually the Giraffe Conservation Foundation.
Oh, is it?
And we're still in discussion with the IUCN. Hopefully they can take it on.
Okay.
But what it is that we propose that there's actually 4 species of giraffe. Right. So over 10 years of work, we've getting genetic samples, so little pieces of skin from giraffe from across their range in Africa. And we've been trying to find out really how many there are. Are they different? Are the ones here in Kenya, southern Kenya, different to the ones in northern Kenya? And we've done a lot of genetic work, and we're just finding out that essentially the Maasai giraffe is a standalone species. Right. They are so genetically unique. The last time they probably bred with other giraffe was more than 1 million years ago.
Really?
That's a long time ago.
Yeah.
And especially if you look at something like brown bears and polar bears, they look different, don't they?
Yeah.
They probably split up between 500 and 800,000 years ago. Okay. But they look totally different. They're genetically different. Giraffe are even more distinct. But to the untrained eye, a giraffe is a giraffe.
Sure, right. Such a beautiful animal. And we've got a number of them here at the Giraffe Centre where we are at the moment. And so many people do come to visit giraffes, but many of them look at the animals as, oh yes, I get to feed a giraffe, that's great. I get to go very close up to a giraffe, job done. But the Giraffe Centre is working with your organisation as well to ensure that education is embedded in the visitors as well. Talk to us a bit about the role of the Giraffe Centre.
I think the Giraffe Centre and the African Fund for Endangered Wildlife is such a critical player in Kenya and the world. I mean, it's one of the most famous places in the world to know and understand about giraffe. So what we found is that let's partner with one of the best organisations out there. So school children coming and visiting, learning about education, the role of the environment, getting up close to a giraffe, they can take that message home to their family to learn that this is probably one of the most endangered animals out there in the world. And what can we do? So what we did is we develop a little bit of information ourselves. We partnered together and we share that now together through the Giraffe Centre. But importantly, we've also kicked off some conservation efforts together. Okay. So together we're funding efforts to understand how many Rothschild's giraffe are there in Kenya and in Uganda. So this is really important because Rothschild's giraffe are listed as endangered. Yeah. In 2010 we did a little bit of work and we sort of announced them as endangered on the IUCN Red List. So numbers are going up, but it's still relatively few. We're only talking about a few more than 2,000 giraffe in the wild. So together with the Giraffe Centre, we really hope that our partnership will keep going. And as a result of that, we've actually put in place a little guy called Arthur Muneza, I believe was on your last show.
Of course, yes, he was.
Arthur's our East Africa Giraffe Coordinator, and he is a fountain of knowledge, but a really dynamic character who has built relationships with Giraffe Centre and many conservation organisations here in Kenya. So we hope that, you know, he's our secret weapon to helping everyone learn more about giraffe. So get online, come to the Giraffe Centre, but then go home, tell others.
You know, we certainly hope that more and more Kenyans, you know, do take up the path that Arthur took, because he really is making a difference. But let's just go back to the point that the new development is that giraffes are now on the red list, and they are vulnerable according to the IUCN, thanks to research done by the Giraffe Conservation Foundation. How worried are you about this, and really how worried should the world be?
On the surface it looks bad, there's no doubt about that, but we can make a difference. So when we look at those numbers, it is a bit skewed. So in southern Africa, there's now more than 50% of the giraffe population is in South Africa, Namibia, Zimbabwe, Botswana. And those numbers are actually going up. Right. So they've got different conservation practices down there. Some are good, some people don't like some of them, but together they're actually helping the population grow. But we are worried about some here. We're worried about the Rothschild's giraffe. The Maasai giraffe here in Kenya and Tanzania, they've dropped by more than 50% in 30 years. So a big problem around this is habitat loss, as I said. So people need to understand where they come from, maybe the village areas and whatnot. Saving and protecting trees and landscapes so wildlife can move through is critical. Otherwise, we're going to see further decline in numbers.
All right, well, we'll talk more about, you know, possible solutions and also what your organisation is doing and what the public can do. But let's have a bit of fun with giraffes, because, you know, it is Valentine's Day today and we are trying to encourage a lot of people to fall in love with giraffes. What is it that, that you, first of all, love about giraffes? Why are they special to you?
What can't you love? I mean, it's probably, I think they are the most gracious animal. They have the most amazing eyelashes.
Oh, and, they certainly do.
Every lady in the world would, you know, gets jealous when you see those eyelashes. So I think, you know, those sort of external features, and they're just so long, tall, ungainly, that it's an animal that you just can't not love. Yeah,
no, they really are special. I know many people whose favourite animals are giraffes, and like you said earlier, you know, you can't miss them when you see them in the landscape. They are so tall. But how romantic, perhaps, are giraffes with one another? Because with certain animals, you know, you see a lion coupled together, you see elephants in families, but tell us more about giraffes and their relationships, their love relationships.
So it's probably not as dynamic as maybe other animals,
that's
unfortunately.
Boring.
It is a bit boring. But they don't live like, you know, together, a mother and a father. They don't come together always. But, you know, the male, he likes a bit of a chase. Okay. So, and the female always says, you know, you can just wait a little bit. Right. So they do follow each other for quite some time. And the actual mating side of it is quick. Okay. I mean, we're talking seconds.
Oh, really?
I mean, I feel a little bit sorry for these guys. So they do all the hard work, and then there's not much gain. But really, males, one of their key roles is to go around and find females, hopefully, you know, have their offspring come as a result of it, but then they go looking for the next one, the next one, and the next one. So they don't end up talking...
Playboys, I tell you,
exactly.
real playboys.
No late nights.
Yeah. Jumping from one to another. I mean, some may question, how do they mate? Do they mate typically like other animals, you know, one getting on top of the other? Because they are huge and tall.
Yeah, I know. Many people think, you know, it's a great thing, it's a tall blonde, but it's not as easy as you think. So what they basically have to do is the male has to put his front legs on top of the back of the female's, you know, body, and then he's got a very large appendage that he can quickly put in and out, but it often you've seen them fall off during it. Yeah, it's not a sort of...
So they're not that comfortable.
No, and it's not very acrobatic at all. But it's basically very quick, but it's on the back, job done, move on, nothing to see here.
All right, wow. And how frequent do giraffes actually have babies?
So giraffe sort of gestation period, the time, you know, it takes to have a child is about 15 months it takes.
Oh, right. Okay.
So from conception to birth, and then after that, some populations, giraffe will come back into season really quickly, and they can then mate again. But others, it takes up to a year or two. Depends on really how they're happy in the environment, but, you know.
And how frequently would one mother have a baby, say, in a year or a month, or does it just depend on how many men come along?
Well, yeah, so what we're finding is that, you know, if you take 15 months to have a child and you say on average take another year, so every 2.5 years they're having a baby.
Okay.
Yeah,
right.
so that's a lot.
Yeah, it is a lot.
So not great for the males.
Yeah. All right, well, lots to learn about giraffes there. That's just a little bit about their love and relationship as it is Valentine's Day. You are watching NTV Wild Talk. So much more to discuss about giraffes. The latest news is that they are on the red list, so something needs to be done to protect them. More on the solutions and what can be done when we return. You are watching NTV Wild Talk. Our hashtag on Twitter is NTV Wild, and also you must like our NTV Wild Facebook page and a chance to win at the end of this show. Do stay with us, more in just a moment. Welcome back to NTV Wild Talk with me, Smriti Vidyarthi, coming to you from the Giraffe Centre here in Nairobi. Remember, you can chime into this conversation using the hashtag on Twitter, NTV Wild, and like our NTV Wild Facebook page. My conversation about giraffes continues with Julian Fennessy. He is the director of the Giraffe Conservation Foundation. Now, Julian, of course, we have indicated to our viewers that really giraffes are now vulnerable, on the red list. Something needs to be done, and that is part of the reason as to why you're here in Kenya. Tell us a little bit about you now, because you are actually based in Namibia. What are you doing here?
So Kenya is a hotspot for giraffe conservation. There's 3 different types of species of giraffe, and really this is one of the world's centres where we need to protect them. So with Arthur Muneza, who's our East African Giraffe Coordinator, we're working with partners like the Giraffe Centre, Northern Rangeland Trust, Save the Elephant, and so many more to figure out how many giraffe are there, what are the threats, and what actions can we start doing to make a difference. And one of those is really exciting. One of those has been setting up translocations of giraffe. So to be able to pick up giraffe from some areas and set up new populations. So it's increasing range, increasing the numbers hopefully. And so we're putting all the legwork together and working closely with the Kenya Wildlife Service to hopefully get things like that moving.
And how challenging must it be to increase rangelands? Because as you mentioned earlier in the show, space is the issue. So how are you creating space?
So in some areas it has to be through private and or public land. So there's some good sort of chunks of land left already in Kenya that we can hopefully pick up some and start those new populations. And also in those that are already giraffe, we can actually probably augment. We can provide more giraffe to hopefully get them sort of breeding quicker and hopefully bring those numbers up.
And what is Kenya's situation, and how then would you compare it to other countries across Africa? How well or badly are we doing with our giraffe numbers?
Sadly, giraffe numbers have gone down. So, you know, Maasai giraffe more than 50%, the reticulated giraffe by almost 80% in the last 30 years. So, yes, it may not look good, but actually there is some positives. So in the last few years, through really good anti-poaching support, good investment from the companies around the world, also in Kenya, but also the government has figured out that we need to do something. And so we do think that is bucking the trend a little bit. So that's one of the things that hopefully then, you know, through the establishment of a Kenya National Giraffe Conservation Strategy, a plan. We've been discussing it for many years. Hopefully it'll come to a desktop near you soon. And hopefully that will provide the impetus and the actions for what we need to do. And we've been doing this in other parts of Africa. So in Niger, and maybe we'll talk about a little bit Niger later because it's an exciting thing that's going on. But we've been working with many countries to figure out how can we help you better save giraffes. So counting numbers is one thing. Counting giraffe, I mean, great. What does that do? It does nothing. But then by working closely with partners, we can say, how do we better manage that land? So we provide technical advice. We provide financial support, equipment to help rangers get out and monitor. So that's really critical on the ground, all the way through to things like collaring. So GPS satellite collaring is a new technique relatively, and so at the moment we've been putting them on the giraffe. It looks like a head sort of harness. It's crazy looking. But we've just been in Kenya looking at new designs. So right here in the heart of Nairobi, there's an organisation, a company that designs really cool innovations, and so we're going to hopefully have things around the ossicones, and it's going to be trialled shortly before this show in Namibia. Which is really exciting. So if that works really well in Namibia, up in the northwest, where it's one of the most beautiful areas in the world, a little biased, I did my PhD there. So, and if we can use it there, then we can apply it in other countries where we work, like Democratic Republic of Congo, Tanzania, Uganda.
And how will collaring help the situation? Will it allow you to track the movement of giraffes essentially?
So basically what you can do at any time, you can figure out where that giraffe is. Where it's using the landscape is really important. In Namibia, we translocated a population and one of those giraffe moved 11,500 square kilometres. Wow. So what's that, about 100 times the size of the national park here?
God.
So by understanding that, we can then work with partners to say which are the best areas we need to protect. And then we can work with communities and everyone to say, yes, that area is fine for you to use, but preferably can we leave that area aside because it's going to help giraffe, elephant and whatever wildlife is out there.
Right, and you've mentioned so many countries in which you're working in and in which, you know, have giraffe. But what is working, for example, in Namibia that's not working here? Or how do we make the comparisons? What does Africa look like as a whole?
So Namibia is increasing the population of giraffe. It's great. So the government has put concerted conservation...
But is that, sorry, let me ask, is that also because they have that much more space? It is full of various landscapes.
It's full of a lot of desert as well. So it's a combination of things. You need good legislation and support from government. You need good private partners. And importantly in Namibia, good community partners. I think it works well in Namibia because the population is so low, let's be honest. But the government is moving giraffe into communal landscapes to help with community conservation, especially tourism. So people come to Namibia to come see an amazing landscape. But now, over the last, let's say, 15 years, we've moved more than 500 giraffe into community areas. And so if you go on a safari, you want to see an animal. And everyone loves giraffe. So that has been one of the real key factors to helping conserve giraffe in Namibia.
It seems like a lot of work has to put in to conserve giraffes. Tell us a little bit more about really what it requires to conserve them. You've touched on a few things, but there seems to be a huge investment.
Yeah, I mean, it takes a lot of time, and that's the thing. The first thing is to try and get the interest, to get the understanding, and the IUCN Red List will really help put giraffe on the map. But yeah, whether you're spending one day sitting in the offices of a national park service or going to an international conference and presenting, but the other day we do a lot of environmental education, training the future of the world is our kids. They're so important. I've got kids myself, and I know in the future I want these little guys to grow up and see giraffe, and they might be a little bit luckier than others. They've been out a bit and seen a few giraffe. But It spans everything. We're not a big organisation, but we think we make a big difference. So one day you're doing one thing, the next the other, and most days you're probably doing all of it at the same time.
Right.
I'm sure you know that.
Yes, so it seems like so much passion, commitment and dedication, but why is it important to you? How did you get involved in conserving giraffe?
It's a bit strange. We've got some Australian bloke living in Namibia, working across Africa.
Right.
So yeah, no, I'm married to a German as well. We live in Namibia, and
it just gets stranger and stranger.
It does. And you know, anyway, no, but what happened is I came as an exchange student, as a 16-year-old, to South Africa for 1 year, and I fell in love with wildlife. That's the bottom line. And I realised that I wanted to make a difference. I could have easily been a stockbroker or anything in insurance or anything, you know, but I realised that I want to make a difference. I went back, I did my studies, came back to Africa, and I think if you want to achieve something, you go for it. I'm about doing, I'm not about talking. So for me as a young Australian, I would hope that, you know, what I can impart now is train and provide support to Africans like Arthur. And hopefully we can have more Arthurs in Africa who together we can make this something that we in this continent can make a difference and not see the decline, but see a positive story.
Well, other than the passion and commitment, what does one require in order to, you know, take up a job such as Arthur's or yours, or at least start getting involved?
Education is key. You know, everyone who we work with at a higher level, essentially, who's involved in planning and strategies, you know, often have a master's in ecology or biology, or even more, a PhD. So.
Wow.
Dr.
And
Arthur
why?
to be soon.
Yeah, but why is that? I mean, that's a very, very high level qualification. Why does it require that?
So the training involved in it is critical to understand what's happening in the environment. If you can understand how the giraffe lives, moves, and then put it in context of how management is required, that's critical. But we do that at that level. But the biggest and most important thing is everyone underneath.
Right.
It's the rangers out there in the world, it's the communities, and we need to be able to take that knowledge that we have and impart it and work closely with them to be able to help them work with us to save giraffes. So we're just a few little people on the top, but a lot of people on the ground.
Right, because many people who are watching perhaps don't have the master's degree or the PhD and may not be able to attain one. Perhaps many of them will.
Hopefully not, it's not that exciting.
Okay, but for the ordinary Kenyan watching who doesn't, you know, have access to perhaps that kind of a degree, what can they do?
So I think the best thing is they can come to the Giraffe Centre, they can learn, children can come and be involved. Every child in Nairobi should be here at the Giraffe Centre learning. Go home, take the information, share it with their family. They can always donate a little bit, but that's not easy for everybody, of course. But if you can do something passionate, you can plant a tree. And if you plant a tree at home, that could be food, not just for giraffe, but other animals that are living in the area. We can all make a difference. I really, truly believe that, you know, a waterfall starts with a drop of rain, and look what happens from there.
Yeah, most definitely. Tell us a little bit about some of your most memorable moments, because clearly you've been out there on the field, you've spent time with the giraffes. What has stood out for you?
So I've been a little bit lucky, there's no doubt about it. And I think you did show on the last show one of my most favourite things of all times, and that really is Operation Twigger. Yes. Everyone knows what Twigger is. I have to explain that everywhere else in the world. So Operation Twigger in Uganda was to set up a new satellite population on the south side of Murchison Falls National Park. We moved 18 giraffe, and crossing the Nile on a boat with giraffe is amazing.
Yeah, I remember that footage from the previous show, and it really was a spectacular sight.
So I think that is amazing, but what I also find is every time I see two big male giraffe going toe to toe, what's called necking, fighting for dominance, and the noises when they hit each other. Some of these giraffes, sadly, don't survive that. They sometimes fight to the death.
God, you know, I have actually witnessed necking right here in the Nairobi
Really?
National Park. So for our viewers, you know, if they want to witness it, go to the park, because there are chances, and it was just fascinating. We just sat there and watched, and it looked mighty painful.
Oh, I mean, I've got better things to do, but it is phenomenal watching that. And I'll add one last thing I think is the best thing, is seeing a young baby giraffe. Yeah. I haven't seen really any birth, ever. In all of my years.
Really?
Never,
And how
ever.
many years is that?
or give or take more than 15
Oh,
years.
wow, all right.
But when you see a new baby giraffe and you see these ossicones, their horns with fluffy things on top, that just gives you an emotional feeling that you are the future for your species.
And again, I'm fortunate enough, and that's probably because I get out there, but again, at the Nairobi National Park, I have seen a baby giraffe and it just looks like a toy. It's so cute, so cute. So lots of exciting things happening. But tell me, Julian, is your work having long-term impacts? I mean, how much of a difference is your work having, do you believe?
We hope it is making a big impact. We wouldn't do it otherwise. And I really truly believe that we do this so we can make a difference. And I can provide an example like in Niger in West Africa. So there was 49 giraffe left 20 years ago in the whole West Africa.
49.
49, and we knew every single individual. So what happened? The government realised we need to make a difference. They set up legislation, policy, strategies. They brought in experts to help. And by doing that and putting in really good law enforcement, the population today is at 550 individuals.
That's impressive.
And a key component of that was a development initiative working with the community. Say, if you can help us save these giraffe, we'll provide water. We'll provide microcredit schemes so you can help your livestock sort of population grow. So there was a quid pro quo. You do something and we'll help you benefit. And this is the future of Africa and the future of wildlife. We need to work with communities because they hold the landscape and these animals in their hands.
Most definitely. And what role is the Kenyan government having in giraffe conservation? Are they doing enough? Do they care enough?
We can always do more, but we have hopefully launched very soon the first ever national strategy for conservation of giraffe in Kenya. And that would only be the second national strategy in the whole of Africa. So Kenya is actually at the forefront of that. We're working very closely. Hopefully very soon we'll have an agreement between the Giraffe Conservation Foundation and the Kenya Wildlife Service to provide all conservation management support for giraffe in the country. So they are super keen. They have set aside areas and they manage giraffe. But I think what we need is we need to bring more expertise. We need the artists on the ground. We need more students, especially Kenyans, to come together. And working closely with these communities, I think the Kenya government will be able to make a difference. We just need to get the information like the IUCN out there. We need to give them the mandate.
Right. Well, speaking about information, are you doing enough, do you think, to ensure that word is getting out there that giraffes are under threat? They are vulnerable and populations are dwindling.
We're not a big organisation. We don't have the big budgets, unfortunately, of some of the large NGOs out there. But we do a lot of education. If you go online or you come to the Giraffe Centre, we have booklets about giraffe and their conservation. And we've just produced a new poster on Kenya's giraffe, specifically for the audience of Kenya. Where are they? How many are there? What are the threats? So this type of education tool is key.
All right, Julian, well, we have engaged some of our viewers and asked them to put forward some of their questions about giraffes because there are so many and there are many myths as well. So these are pretty interesting and I'm going to put them to you now. So Joy sent in a message and asked, can giraffe soup cure cancer?
Whoa, giraffe soup, I've never heard that one.
Neither me.
Bottom line, no.
All right, okay. Mark Shikatuli says, how can one differentiate easily between a female and a male giraffe from a distance?
So from a distance, if you look at their head, the male giraffe have what's called ossicones, the horns, much thicker on their head. So you can see that from quite far away. And they're a lot like me. The males don't have much hair on top.
All righty.
The females normally have hair.
Okay, Vincent says, how many teeth does a giraffe have?
I got no clue.
Alrighty.
Go online. I think we've got that one. It's like 20 odd.
Okay. Jane says, are the patterns unique to each giraffe?
Each giraffe, like you and me, look different. So you can tell
well,
them...
not for your layman. For a lot of people, they look the same.
That's true. But from their whole life,
yeah,
their pattern stays the same. So you can keep identifying them from birth to death.
And no doubt that makes your work easier, because earlier in the show you've been talking about counting giraffes and identifying them. So is that how you do it, through its coat pattern?
We do, and we have a brand new program which is a citizen science tool that everyone can get involved with. It'll be on a computer near you soon.
Okay.
You can take a photo of giraffe, you can upload it on the website, and it's called Wild Book for Giraffe. And it's a program that tells every individual apart, and it uses a software program like CSI, the TV show,
yeah.
like a fingerprint. Each giraffe pattern is like a unique fingerprint.
Oh, brilliant.
And we can track them over their life. So something to get online, take a photo when you're on safari and upload it.
Wow, so viewers can get involved in counting giraffe as well. Brilliant. Okay, Alfred Osiko says, is it true that after giving birth, the mother giraffe kicks the young one until it can stand up and walk?
Well, I haven't seen a mother human do it, and I don't think I'll ever see a giraffe do it either.
Right.
No. Normally what happens, it's a long drop, it breaks the umbilical cord, and it's enough for it to sort of bounce up. The mother will lick it, give it a bit of a nudge, but if it kicks it, it might kill it.
So, because that kick is tough. It's a strong
it
kick.
can kill lions, it can kill predators out there.
All right, so maybe it is just that nudge. Okay, Margaret says, is it true that a female giraffe can retract its baby while giving birth if it senses danger around?
No.
No.
No, not at all.
All
And
right.
I really would feel sorry if that had to happen. No, it can't do that at all, unfortunately, but it'd be a good thing. Maybe they should learn that.
Okay, and Irene says, from the recent outcome of studies that there are, well, only 4 species of giraffe, she says, can you list the 4 species and where the other remaining subspecies are categorized?
Okay, quickly. In Kenya, we have the Maasai giraffe. Then we also have that in Tanzania. But then we have here, we have the reticulated giraffe, but that also goes into a little bit of Ethiopia and Somalia. Then we have what's called the northern giraffe with different subspecies, including the Rothschilds, which is now essentially the same as Nubian giraffe. There's also the West African giraffe and the Kordofan giraffe, and that goes across Central Africa. And then the last one is down in Southern Africa, and it's called the southern giraffe. And there's 2 different types, the Angolan, which doesn't live in Angola, lives mostly in Namibia, and the South African giraffe.
All right, Leslie says, is it true that a giraffe's tongue kills bacteria?
It doesn't kill bacteria, but it actually has a saliva that neutralizes a lot of it. So if you get licked by it, it's going to be good for you.
Okay, good stuff. And then Mark also asks, how many years does a giraffe live?
So how long is a piece of string? We really don't know. We've never had long-term study. We assume, and we know from in the captivity, they can live up to 30 odd years old. So, but we estimate, give or take, about 25.
Okay, Irene then says, how does a giraffe maintain its blood pressure in its head despite going against gravity and despite the long neck?
That's really important, and that's been used to help space astronauts go in and out of space, because they have a special valve system that the blood gets pumped up, but it can't come down and it can't pool. It's got a big heart and it pumps it so it doesn't pool and sit in it. And so astronauts actually have really tight spacesuits at the extremities so the blood doesn't stay there.
Oh, fascinating. All right, and one more from Irene. She says, I've noticed that when giraffes walk, the right front leg and the right hind leg move at the same time, but it's different when it's running. Is there any scientific or body structure reason to this?
No, but it does happen, I know that.
Really?
But yeah, many animals also have that. They have a different gait when they walk and run. It looks really awkward, but it works
does,
for them.
Yeah. All right, well, those are your questions. Thank you for contributing to NTV Wild Talk. If you have any more, please do go to our Facebook page, NTV Wild, and post your questions there. We'll get them answered. And also use the hashtag on Twitter, NTV Wild. So as we wrap up this interview, Julian, are you hopeful about the future of giraffes? Is it looking positive?
I think we're going to make a difference, and hopefully we're going to save some key populations. Unfortunately, we might lose some, because that's going to happen, sadly, with human populations increasing. But I am positive, and I think together we can all make a difference.
Right. All right. That word together is key, because it's not just the Giraffe Conservation Foundation that can do all the work, or the Giraffe Centre. It requires your input too, even if it's just spreading the knowledge. All right, Julian, thanks so much for joining us on NTV Wild Talk. And as Julian says, despite the fact that giraffes are now on the red list, they are vulnerable, something can be done. Do stay with us on NTV Wild Talk as we shift focus now. Here are some of the photos that you sent in on our Wild Pick segment. What is the giraffe gestation period? What is the giraffe gestation period? To participate, you must like the NTV Wild Facebook page. Only answers posted on the timeline post that's associated with this question will be considered. The first person to answer correctly wins one night for up to 5 people at the beautiful self-catering Twiga house located on the stunning shores of Lake Naivasha, plus free entry for 4 people and a vehicle to any national park of their choice, courtesy of the Kenya Wildlife Service, 1 bottle of wine courtesy of Wines of the World, and a gift hamper courtesy of Wildlife Direct. Terms and conditions apply and can be found on the NTV Wild Facebook page. Last week's lucky winner was Che Chege. And now here's the moment you've all been waiting for. Here is our wild guest question. Edu Vijedi in the white shirt on the left was at the Masai Mara. He was posing at the sign that says, "You are now entering the Serengeti National Park." He says that he was just exploring and is doing a Bachelor of Travel and Tours and Research on Animal Species. At Crescent Island in Lake Naivasha, this is Emma Mbuvi. She was posing with giraffes in the background and says she was there because she loves wildlife. Brighton Smile was at the Menengai crater. He was watching the great beauty of the crater, he says, and was touring with friends. They created the Nakuru Friends hike. At the Nairobi National Park, this is a snap of Mudogo Juma. That was a pose in front of a lion, and he was there because he enjoys the nature walk, he says. Arnold Kipto was at the Chemogong Forest Reserve. He was posing upon a rock and says he visited the forest to enjoy the beautiful scenery away from the hustle and bustle of the city. If you want your photo showcased on our Wild Pick segment, just like our NTV Wild Facebook page. Send a photo that shows you celebrating nature via private message. Be sure to include your full name, tell us where the photo was taken, what you were doing and why. Well, you've heard the statistics. Giraffe numbers are dwindling and now giraffes are officially on the red list. They are vulnerable. And if we don't act soon enough, we will lose giraffe populations across Africa and across the world. And we simply cannot afford to let that happen. So make sure you do your bit. Come to the Giraffe Centre and visit. Spread the knowledge, and on this Valentine's Day, spread the love. It is the least you can do. Thanks very much for watching NTV Wild Talk with me, Smriti Vidyarthi, coming to you from the Giraffe Centre here in Nairobi. We'll see you again next week at 10 p.m.
Now's our wild question.
Okay. Okay, done.
Be careful, I will follow you.
NTV Wild Talk in partnership with the Kenya Wildlife Service and Wildlife Direct.